Did you hear what I was playing, Lane?
I did not think it polite to listen, sir.
I'm sorry about that. Have you got the cucumber sandwiches cut for Lady Bracknell?
Yes, sir.
By the way, I saw from your book on Thursday night when Lord Shoreham and Mr. Worthing were dining here with me that 8 bottles of champagne are entered as to having been consumed.
Yes, sir. 8 bottles and a pint.
Why is it that at a bachelor's establishment that the servants invariably drink the wine? I ask merely for information.
Well, sir, I attribute it to the superior quality of the wine, sir. I have often observed that in married households, the wine is rarely of a first-rate brand.
Good heavens! Is marriage so demoralizing as that?
I believe it is a very pleasant state, sir. I have had very little experience of it myself. Up to the present, I have only been married once. That was due in consequence of a misunderstanding between myself and the young person.
I don't think I'm very much interested in your life, Lane.
Of course, sir. It is not a very interesting subject. In fact, I rarely think of it myself.
Very natural, I'm sure. The bell, Lane?
Yes, sir.
Lane's views on marriage seem somewhat lax. Really, if the lower order doesn't set us a good example, what on earth is use of them? They seem as a class to have absolutely no sense of their moral responsibilities.
Mr. Ernest Worthing.
Oh, how do you do, my dear Ernest? What brings you up into town?
Oh, pleasure, pleasure. What else to bring one anywhere, huh? Eating as usual, I see, Algie.
I believe it is customary in good society to take some slight refreshment at 5 o'clock. Where have you been since last Thursday?
Well, I've been in the country.
What on earth do you do there?
When one is in town, one amuses oneself. When one is in the country, one amuses others. It is excessively boring.
And who are the people you amuse?
Oh, neighbors.
Oh, got nice neighbors?
Perfectly horrid. Never speak to any of them.
Oh, how immensely you must amuse them. Oh, by the way, Shropshire is your county.
Shropshire? Yes, of course. Hello? Why all these cups? Why cucumber sandwiches? Who is coming to tea?
Oh, merely Aunt Augusta and Gwendolyn.
Ah, how perfectly delightful.
Yes, that may very be so, but I'm afraid Aunt Augusta won't quite approve of your being here.
May I ask why?
My dear fellow, the way you flirt with Gwendolyn is perfectly disgraceful. It's almost as bad as the way Gwendolyn flirts with you.
I am in love with Gwendolyn, and I have come up to town expressly to propose to her.
I thought you'd come up for pleasure. I call that business.
How utterly unromantic you are.
I don't see anything romantic about proposing. It's very romantic to be in love, yes, but there's nothing romantic about a definite proposal. Why? One must be accepted. One usually is, I believe. And then the acceptance all over. The very essence of romance is uncertainty. Oh, please don't touch the cucumber sandwiches. They're for Aunt Augusta.
Well, you've been eating them all the time.
Oh, that is quite a different matter. She's my aunt. Oh, sit down, will you? Have some bread and butter. Oh, the bread and butter is so Gwendolyn.
Very good bread and butter it is, too.
Oh, my dear fellow, you don't have to eat it as if you're going to eat it all. You behave as if you're already married to her, and you're not. And I don't think you ever will be.
Why on earth do you say that?
Well, in the first place, girls never marry the men they flirt with. They just don't think it's right.
Well, that's nonsense.
It isn't. It's a great truth. That accounts for the extraordinary numbers of bachelors one sees all over town. In the second place, I'm going to give my consent.
Your consent?
Before I allow you to marry my cousin Gwendolyn, you're going to answer the whole question of Cecily.
Cecily? What on earth do you mean? What do you mean, Algie, by Cecily? I don't know anyone by the name of Cecily.
Oh, Blaine, bring me that cigarette case Mr. Worthing left here last time he dined.
Yes, sir.
Do you mean to say that you have had my cigarette case this entire time? I wish to goodness you would have let me know. I've been writing frantic letters to Scotland Yard about it, and I was nearly offering a large reward.
Well, I wish you would offer one. I've been usually hard up.
Well, there is no good in offering a large reward now that the thing is
I
found.
think it's about the meaning of you, Ernest. However, for now that I look at the inscription inside, I find the thing isn't yours. After all.
Of course it's mine. You see me with it 100 times, and you have no right whatsoever to read what is written inside. It is very ungentlemanly to read a private cigarette case.
That may be, but this is not your cigarette case. This case is a present from someone by the name of Cecily. And you said you didn't know anyone of that name.
Well, if you want to know, Cecily happens to be my aunt.
Your aunt?
Yes, charming old lady she is too. Lives at Tunbridge Wells. Just give it back to me, Algie.
Ah! But what is your aunt who lives at Tunbridge Wells calls you and herself little Cecily with her fondest love? And as to you, Uncle Jack, huh?
My dear fellow, what on earth is there in that? Some aunts are tall, some aunts are not tall. That is merely a matter that an aunt should be allowed to decide for herself. You seem to think that every aunt should be exactly like your aunt. That is absurd. For heaven's sake, give me back my cigarette case.
Yeah. Yes, but one aunt, no matter what her size may be, she called her own nephew her uncle. From little Cecily with the fondest love to her dear Uncle Jack. I can't quite make it out. Besides, your name is Jack. It is Ernest.
It isn't Ernest, it's Jack.
You've always told me your name is Ernest. I've introduced you to everyone as Ernest. You answer to the name of Ernest. You look as if your name was Ernest. You are the most earnest-looking person I've ever saw. It's perfectly ridiculous that you saying your name isn't Ernest. In fact, it's on your card, and here's one of them. Mr. Ernest Worthing, B4, the Albany. I'll keep this as proof in case you try to deny it to me, to Gwendolyn, or to anyone else.
Well, my name is Ernest in town and Jack in the country. And the cigarette case was given to me in the country.
Oh, yes, but that does not explain as to why your small aunt Cecily, who lives at Tunbridge Wells, also calls you her dear Uncle Jack. However, now that I may think about it, I've always suspected you of being a secret and confirmed Bunburyist.
Bunburyist? What on earth do you mean by a Bunburyist?
Well, I'll explain to you that incomparable expression as soon as you are able to describe to me why your small aunt Cecily, and as well as you are, why are you Ernest in town and Jack in the country,
Well, produce my cigarette case first.
Here it is. Now go on. Produce your explanation.
Well, old Mr. Thomas Cardew, who adopted me when I was a little boy, made me in his will guardian to his granddaughter, Miss Cecily Cardew. Cecily, who addresses me as her uncle. From motives of respect that you cannot possibly appreciate, lives at my place in the country under the charge of her admirable governess, Miss Prism.
Oh, where's this place in the country, by the way?
That is nothing to you, dear boy. You are not going to be invited. I may tell you candidly that the place is now in Shropshire.
I suspected as much, for I'd already Shropshire all over. There, as a Bunburyist, on 2 separate occasions. Now go on. Why are you Ernest in town and Jack in the country?
My dear Algie, when one is placed in the position of guardian, one is to adopt a very high moral tone on all subjects. It's one's duty to do so. And as a high moral tone can hardly be said to conduce very much to either one's health or happiness, in order to get up to town, I've always pretended to have a younger brother by the name of Earnest, who lives at the Albany and gets into the most dreadful scrapes. There, my dear Algie, is the whole truth, pure and simple.
Oh, but the truth is never pure and rarely simple. What you are is a Bunburyist. You are one of the most advanced Bunburyists I know.
What on earth do you mean?
You have invented a very useful young brother called Ernest, in order that you may go up into town as often as you'd like. I have invented a very invaluable permanent invalid called Bunbury, in order that I may go down to the country whenever I choose. If it weren't for Bunbury's extraordinary bad health, for instance, I wouldn't have been able to dine with you tonight at the Carlton.
I haven't asked you to dine with me anywhere tonight.
I know. You're perfectly careless about sending out invitations. It's perfectly childish of you. Nothing annoys people is not receiving any invitations.
You had much better dine with your Aunt Augusta.
I would do no such thing, for I already dine there on Monday, and once a week is enough to dine with one's own relations. In the second place, whenever I do dine there, I'm always treated as a member of the family. They send me down with no woman at all, or two. In the third place, I know whom she'll place me next to tonight. She'll place me next to Mary Farquaad. Who always seems to flirt with her own husband across the dinner table. Ugh, it's not decent. Indeed, it isn't very pleasant either. The amount of women in London who seem to be flirting with their own husbands in London is perfectly scandalous. It's so bad, it's like washing one's own linen in public. Ugh. Besides, and now that I know you are a Bunburyist, I want to talk to you about Bunburying. I want to tell you the rules.
I'm not a Bunburyist at all. If Gwendolyn accepts me, I'm going to kill my brother. Indeed, I think I'll kill him in any case. Cecily's a little too interested in him. It is rather a bore. So I am going to get rid of Ernest. And I strongly advise you to do the same with your invalid friend with the absurd name.
Oh, nothing will induce me to part with Bunbury. If you do happen to get married, which I find to be extremely problematic, you'll be glad to know Bunbury. A man who marries without Bunbury has a very tedious time of it.
That is nonsense. If I marry a charming girl like Gwendolyn, and she's the only girl I've ever seen in my life that I would like to marry, I certainly don't want to know Bunbury.
Then your wife will. You don't seem to realize, my dear fellow, that in married life, 3 is company and 2 is none. Oh, that must be Aunt Augusta. Now, if I can get her out of the way for, say, about 10 minutes, in order that you may propose to Gwendolyn, may I dine with you tonight at the Carlton?
I suppose so, if you want to.
Yes! You have to be serious about it. I hate it when people aren't serious about meals. It's so shallow of them.
Lady Bracknell and Miss Fairfax.
Well, dear Algernon, I hope you are behaving well.
I'm feeling well, Aunt Augusta.
That is not quite the same thing. In fact, the two rarely go together. Good afternoon, Mr. Worthing. How do you do?
Oh, dear me, you're smart.
I am always smart. Aren't I, Mr. Worthing?
You are quite perfect, Miss Fairfax.
Oh, I hope I'm not that. It would leave no room for developments, and I tend to develop in many directions.
I'm sorry if you're a little late, Algernon, but I was obliged to call on dear Lady Hanbury. I hadn't been there since your poor husband's death. I never saw a woman so altered. She looks quite 20 years younger. I'll have a cup of tea and one of those nice cucumber sandwiches you promised me.
Good heavens, Lane! What are the little cucumber sandwiches? Lane! Where are you, Lane? Oh, there you are. I was so panicked, and how come there are no cucumber sandwiches?
There were no cucumber sandwiches in the market this morning, sir. I went down twice.
No cucumbers?
No, sir, not even for any money.
Oh, so do, Lane, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I'm greatly distressed, Aunt Augusta, about there being no cucumber sandwiches.
It really makes no matter, Algernon. I had some crumpets with Lady Hanbury, who seems to me be living entirely for pleasure now.
Oh, I heard her hair's turned quite gold from grief.
It certainly has changed color, from what cause, I, of course, can't say. I have quite a treat for you tonight, Algernon. I'm going to send you down to Mary Farquhar. She is such a nice young woman, is so attentive to her husband, it's delightful to watch them.
Oh, I'm afraid, Aunt Augusta, that I won't have the chance of dining with you tonight after all.
I hope not, Algernon. It will might take him completely out. Your uncle have to dine upstairs. Fortunately, he's accustomed to that.
Oh, it is a great bore, but the fact is I've just received a telegram about my poor friend Bunbury, who seems to be very ill again.
It is very strange as Mr. Bunbury seems to suffer from curiously bad health.
Yes, he is a dreadful invalid.
Well, I must say, Algernon, I think it is high time that Mr. Bunbury made up his mind whether he was going to live or die. This shilly-shallying of the question is absurd, nor do I in any way approve of this modern sympathy with invalids. I consider it morbid. Illness of any kind is hardly a thing to be encouraged in others. Health is a primary duty of life. I'm always telling that to poor uncle, but he never seems to take any notice as far as improvements of his many ailments goes. I would be much obliged if you would ask Mr. Bunbury from me to be kind enough not to have a relapse on Saturday, for I rely on you to arrange my music for me. It is my last reception, and one wants something that will encourage conversation, particularly at the end of the season when everyone has practically said what I have to say.
Oh, I'll talk to Bunbury, Aunt Augusta, if you're still conscious. However, I've drawn out the program for you. However, the music is a great difficulty. If you'll like to go over it into the next room.
Thank you, Algernon. It's very thoughtful of you. I'm sure the program will be delightful after a few expurgations. Gwendolyn, you will follow.
Certainly, Mama.
Charming day it has been, Miss Fairfax.
Pray don't speak to me about the weather, Mr. Worthing. Whenever people speak to me about the weather, I feel quite certain that they mean something else, and that makes me so nervous.
I do mean something else.
I thought so.
And I would like to be allowed to take advantage of Lady Bracknell's temporary absence.
I would certainly advise you to do so. Mama has a way of coming back suddenly into her room that I've had to speak to her about.
Miss Fairfax, ever since I have met you, I have admired you more than any girl I've ever met since I met you.
Yes, I am quite aware of that fact. I often wish that in public at any rate you had been more demonstrative. For me, you have always had an irresistible fascination. We live, as I hope you know, Mr. Worthing, in an age of ideals. The fact is constantly mentioned in the more expensive monthly magazines. And my ideal has always been to love someone of the name of Earnest. There is something in that name that inspires absolute confidence. When Algernon first mentioned to me that he had a friend named Earnest, I knew that I was destined to love you.
You really love me, Gwendolyn?
Passionately.
Darling, you don't know how happy you've made me.
My own Earnest.
Of course, but you don't mean to say that you wouldn't love me if my name wasn't Earnest?
But your name is Earnest.
Yes, I know it is. But supposing it was something else, could you not say you couldn't love me then?
Oh, that is clearly a metaphysical speculation, and like all metaphysical speculations, have very little reference to the actual facts of life as we know them.
Personally, darling, to speak quite candidly, I don't care much about the name of Ernest, and I don't think the name suits me at all.
It suits you perfectly. It is a divine name. It has a music of its own. It produces vibrations.
Well, I must say that I think there are lots of much nicer names. I think, I don't know, let's take Jack for instance. I take it as a charming name.
Jack? No. There is very little music in the name Jack, if any at all indeed. It does not thrill. It produces absolutely no vibrations. I have known several Jacks, and they all, with that exception, were more than usually plain. And besides, Jack is a notorious domesticity for John, and I pity any woman who is married to a man called John. She would probably never be allowed to know the entrancing pleasure of a single moment's solitude. The only really safe name is Earnest.
Gwendolyn, I must get christened at once. I mean, we must get married at once.
Married, Mr. Worthing?
Well, surely. You know that I love you, and you led me to believe, Miss Fairfax, that you are not absolutely indifferent to me.
I adore you, but you haven't proposed to me yet. Nothing has been said at all about marriage. This subject has not even been touched upon.
Well, may I propose to you now?
I think it would be an admirable opportunity. To spare you any possible disappointment, I think it fair to tell you quite frankly beforehand that I am fully determined to accept you.
Then, Gwendolyn, will you marry me?
Of course I will, darling. How long you have been about it? I'm afraid you've had very little experience in how to propose.
My own one, I have never loved anyone in the world as much as you.
Yes, but men often propose for practice. Oh, Ernest, what wonderfully brown eyes you have. They are quite brown. I hope you will always look at me just like that, especially when there are other people present.
Mr. Worthing! Rise from the semi-recumbent posture. It is most indecorous.
Mama! I must beg you to retire. This is no place for you. Besides, Mr. Worthing is not quite finished yet.
Finished what, may I ask?
I am engaged to Mr. Worthing, Mama.
Pardon me. You are not engaged to anyone. When you become engaged to anyone, I or your father, should his health permit him, will inform you of that fact. An engagement should always come on a young girl as a surprise, pleasant or unpleasant, as the case may be. It is hardly a matter that she should be allowed to arrange for herself. And now I have a few questions to put to you, Mr. Worthing. And while I'm making these inquiries, you, Gwendolyn, will wait below for me in the carriage.
Mama!
In the carriage, Gwendolyn. Gwendolyn, the carriage!
Yes, Mama.
The nerve of that girl. You can take a seat, Mr. Worthing.
Thank you, Lady Bracknell, but I prefer standing.
I feel bound to tell you that you are not down on my list of eligible young men. Although I have the same list as the dear Duchess of Bolton has, we work together in fact. However, I am quite ready to enter your name, should your answers be what a really affectionate mother requires. Do you smoke?
Well, yes, I must admit I smoke.
I'm glad to hear it. A man should always have an occupation of some kind. There are far too many outland men in London as it is. How old are you?
28.
A very good age to be married at. I've always been one in the opinion that a man who desires to get married should either know everything or nothing. Which do you know?
I know nothing, Lady Bracknell.
I'm pleased to hear it. I do not approve of anything that tampers with natural ignorance. Ignorance is like a delicate, exotic fruit. Touch it and, oh, the bloom is gone. What is your income?
Between 7,000 and 8,000 a year.
In land or in investment?
In investments chiefly.
That is satisfactory.
I have a country house with some land attached to it, about 1,500 acres, I believe.
A country house. How many bedrooms? Well, that point can be cleared up afterwards. You have a townhouse, I hope? A girl with a simple, unspoiled nature like one that could hardly ever be expected to reside in the country.
Well, I own a house in Belgrave Square, but it is let by the year to Lady Bloxham. Of course, I could get it back whenever I like at 6 months' notice.
Lady Bloxham, I don't know her.
Oh, she goes about very little. She's a lady considerably advanced in years.
Nowadays, there's no guarantee of respectability of character. What number in Belgrave Square?
149.
Oh, the unfashionable side. I thought there was something. However, that can be easily altered. Now, to minor matters, are your parents living?
I have lost both my parents.
Both? To lose one parent may be regarded as misfortune. To lose both seems like carelessness. Who was your father? He seems to have been a man of wealth. Was he born in what the Vatican papers called the purple of commerce, or did he rise from the ranks of aristocracy?
I'm afraid I really don't know. The truth is, Lady Bracknell, I had said I had lost both my parents. It would be nearer the truth to say that they have lost me. I actually don't know who I am by birth because, well, I was found.
Found?
The late Mr. Thomas Cardew, a man of a very kind and charitable disposition, found me and gave me the name of Worthing because he happened to have a first-class ticket to Worthing in his pocket at the time. Worthing is a seaside resort in Sussex.
And where did the charitable gentleman who had a first-class ticket to the seaside resort find you?
In a handbag.
Oh, a handbag!
Yes, Lady Bracknell, I was in a handbag. A leather handbag with handles to it. A large leather handbag, in fact.
In what locality did this Mr. Thomas Cardew come across this ordinary handbag?
In the cloakroom at Victoria Station. It was given to him in mistake for his own.
Mr. Worthing, I confess I feel somewhat bewildered about what you just have told me. To be born, or at any rate, bread in a handbag, whether I had handles or not, seems to me to display the contempt of the ordinary decencies of family life that remind one of the worst successes of the French Revolution. And I presume you know how that unfortunate movement led to?
May I ask then what you would ensure me to do? I need hardly say I would do anything in the world to ensure Gwendolyn's happiness.
I would strongly advise you, Mr. Worthington, to try to acquire some relation as soon as possible, and make a definite effort to produce at any rate one parent of either sex before the season is quite over.
Well, I don't see how I could possibly manage to do that. I could produce the handbag at any moment. It is in my dressing room at home. I really think that would satisfy you, Lady Bracknell.
Me, sir? What has it to do with me? You could hardly imagine that I and Lord Bracknell would dream of allowing our only daughter, a girl brought up with the utmost care, to marry into a cloakroom and form alliance with a handbag. Good morning, Mr. Worthing.
Good morning. For goodness sake, Algernon, don't play that ghastly tune. How idiotic.
Didn't it go off all right, old boy? You don't mean to say that Gwendolyn refused you now, did she?
Oh, as far as Gwendolyn is concerned, we are engaged. Her mother is perfectly unbearable. Never met such a gorgon. You don't think there is any chance of Gwendolyn becoming like her mother in about 150 years, do you, Algie?
All women become like their mothers. That's their tragedy. And no man does. That's his.
Is that clever?
It is. It's as true as any observations in civilized life need be.
Well, I am sick to death of cleverness. Everybody is clever nowadays. You can't go anywhere without meeting clever people. That thing has become an absolute public nuisance. I wish to goodness we had a few fools left.
We have.
I should extremely like to meet them. What do they talk about?
The fools? Oh, yes, the clever people. Oh, by the way, have you told Gwendolyn about you being Earnest in town and Jack in the country?
My dear fellow, the truth isn't quite the sort of thing one tells to a nice, sweet, refined girl. What extraordinary ideas you have about the way to behave to a woman.
The only way to behave to a woman is to make love to her, if she's pretty, and to someone else if she's plain.
That is nonsense.
Well, what about your brother? What about the prolificate Earnest?
Oh, before the end of the week, I'll show I've got rid of him. I'll say he died in Paris of apoplexy. Lots of people die of apoplexy quite suddenly, don't they?
Yes, but that is a hereditary thing, my dear. A thing that runs in families. You had a better chance, say, a severe chill.
You are sure a severe chill isn't hereditary or anything of the kind?
Of course not.
Very well then. My poor brother Ernest is suddenly carried off in Paris by a severe chill. That gets rid of him.
Oh, but I thought you said Miss Cecily Cardew was a little bit too much interested in your poor brother Ernest.
No, that's all right. Cecily's not a silly romantic girl at all. She has a capital appetite and goes on long walks and pays no attention at all to her lessons.
Oh, I would like to meet this Cecily.
I will take very good care you never do. She is excessively pretty and she is only 18.
Oh, have you told Gwendolyn about this excessively pretty young ward who's only just 18?
Oh, one doesn't put these things out to people. Cecily and Gwendolyn are perfectly certain to be extremely great friends. I'll bet you anything you like that half an hour after they have met, they will be calling each other sister.
Ooh, women only call each other that after they've called each other plenty of other things first. Now, if we want to get a good table at the Carlton tonight, I say we go up and dress. I'm hungry.
I never knew you when you weren't.
Miss Fairfax.
Gwendolyn, upon my word.
Algie, kindly turn your back. I have something very particular to say to Mr. Worthing.
Really, Gwendolyn? I don't think I can accept this at all.
Algie, pray oblige me by turning your back. Ernest, we may never be married. From the expression on Mama's face, I fear we never shall. Few parents nowadays pay any regard to what their children say to them. The old-fashioned respect for the young is rapidly dying out. Whatever influence I ever had over Mama, I lost at the age of 3. But although she may prevent us from becoming man and wife, and I may marry someone else and marry often, nothing that she can possibly say can alter my eternal devotion to you.
Dear Gwendolyn,
The story of your romantic origin, as related to me by Mama, with unpleasing comments, has naturally stirred the deeper fibers of my nature. Your Christian name is an irresistible fascination. The simplicity of your character makes you incomprehensible to me. Your address in town I have. What is your address in the country?
the Manor House, Woolton, Herefordshire.
How long do you remain in town?
Till Monday.
Good. Algie,
Yes?
you may turn around now.
Oh, but I've already turned around, thank you.
You may also ring the bell.
Oh, of course.
You will let me see you to your carriage, my own darling.
Certainly.
I will see Miss Fairfax out.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Oh. 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 Tomorrow, Lane, I'm going bunburying.
Yes, sir.
Oh, I probably won't be back till Monday, so in the meantime, I probably won't be back till actually in the meantime, you can hang up my dress clothes, my smoking jackets, and all of my bunburying suits.
Yes, sir.
Tomorrow is going to be a fine day, Lane.
It never really is, sir.
Oh, you are a perfect pessimist.
I do my best to give satisfaction, sir.
There's a sensible, intellectual girl, the only girl I've ever cared for in my life. What on earth are you so amused at?
Oh, I'm just a little bit anxious about my poor friend Bunbury, is all.
If you don't take care, Burry, get into a serious scrape someday.
Oh, I love scrapes. They're the only things that aren't serious.
Well, that's nonsense, Algie. You never talk anything but nonsense.
Nothing ever is. Manor House, Woolton, Hertfordshire.